Thank you. When I was saying something about new working methods today to the ministers, actually this is due to a strike in Rome airport, a little bit of an improvisation. We had to, I had to anticipate a flight, so I apologize to you for the short time we have today, but as you know, I'm always keen on taking questions and trying to give answers. So next time for sure we'll do that way. But I wanted to share with you the sense of this Foreign Affairs Council in the development format. So that has been my first one my first one ever, not only in my new capacity. I think it has been an excellent chance to discuss with the ministers about the way of putting development at the center of the European Union foreign policy. Development and cooperation is one of the, on the grounds where European Union is a key player in itself and with all the member states. And it's a key instrument for both prevention of crises and conflicts, promotion and protections of human rights and democracy. And it's also an excellent tool to manage post-crisis and post-conflict times and areas. And we know how key this is, especially to prevent crisis to come back after a certain number of years and devastate entire parts and regions of the world, and in particular around Europe. As I said, we have had a very short reflection, but still important reflection on working methods with the ministers, very similar to the ones that we are having also with the foreign ministers and with the defense ministers, and also a little bit with the trade ministers, trying to make the better use also of this format of councils, and also of integrating or coordinating the work of the different formats of the Foreign Affairs Council. You know, we have 4 formats. Trying to make them work together more and more so that we work not only in coordinating the external action of the European Union on the side of the Commission, but also on the side of the Council, and also in view of the next European Council next week. On this, the Council is going to discuss now in a few minutes with Commissioner Stylianides about the written report on Ebola, that is going then to be also discussed at the Foreign Affairs Council on Monday with foreign ministers, and then pass to the heads of state of government, the heads of state and government on Thursday and Friday next week. The main 2 points of today's meeting have been, on one side, the post-2015 development agenda. Yesterday, we've started introducing new working methods for the Development Council, having a working dinner with Amina Mohammed that presented us the UN Secretary General synthesis report for the post-2015 development agenda. It has been an excellent chance to share ideas and facilitated a lot our discussion today for the formal endorsement of Council conclusions on post-2015. And I can say that thanks also to the work that the Italian presidency has done in these months, today we can say that the European Union can speak with one voice when it comes to the post-2015 development agenda. This has not always been the case in the past. Today that is the case. And that allows us to exercise our responsibilities in this field at full. The European Union is a key player in the United Nations. The United Nations need, as the multilateral forum, by definition, European Union investment in this approach, in this system. We all know that, in particular on post-2015, as we're working on a universal agenda, having European Union united to support it means also that we are ready to take our own responsibilities, not only in external action and policies, but also on internal policies. The post-2015 agenda is going to include also measures that will be relevant for national and internal policies. The principle is not to leave anyone behind, not only in some parts of the world, but in all parts of the world. And this will need European Union and member states also to work on not leaving anyone behind in Europe. We know we have to work on that. In this respect, we will work together with commissioners and also ministers that have internal portfolios, and also with finance ministers and with the commissioners that have responsibility on the budget and on finances. The other key role that the European Union can play in this post-2015 process, now that we can loudly speak with one voice, is trying to reach out both the general public opinion, and in this we count very much on a strong relation that we have with NGOs and civil society organizations. We have to reach out the general public. We have to get out of the, let's say, development bubble and make it possible to communicate the importance of the strategies that we are working on for the everyday life of European citizens and the citizens of the world. And the third key element, part of the European Union role in these months that will lead us to the UN summit that will approve the post-2015 development agenda, is the possibility for the European Union to be a bridge builder with other parts of the world. We have discussed a lot the need to overcome a north-south approach, but to build relations with different parts of the world that are on the same line, that are as much as we are committed to the eradication of poverty and to all the other issues that are on the table for the post-2015 development agenda. And we need to move from this a little bit, let me say, paternalistic approach sometimes to a purely partnership-based approach that is something that the European Union can for sure have. Let me underline other 2 points. One that was extremely important on the agenda, on which we adopted conclusions. Thanks again to the Italian presidency that put the issue on the agenda for the first time in the Development Foreign Affairs Council. We adopted conclusions on migration and development. Normally, migration is taken only on the security side, on the internal or home or justice domain. Migration has obviously links, very strong links, to development policies, also with foreign policies. And for the first time, we managed to tackle this aspect. It is in itself a major achievement, but it is also for me personally a way of committing myself and my future work to build on this step that has opened a door, and now we have to work in that direction. And we will follow up the conclusions that we have adopted on migration and development that you will see in a while with coordinated work already in the beginning of next year with a group of commissioners on external action and also other commissioners. I think of Avramopoulos for sure, trying to integrate the different sides of perfect timing, different sides of our approach to migration and refugees. The focus on refugees and managing of refugees flows and humanitarian assistance and development policies is obviously the key of our work. I stop here and run to catch a plane. I'm really sorry for that, but this is perfect teamwork because now I pass the floor to Commissioner Mimica. We shared the whole session, working session this morning. And you might have noticed that this has become a practice for us to work very closely and very well together, I would say. So I apologize for not being able to take the questions, but I guess you will be ready to do that. Perfect. And so I leave you in the best hands, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you. So, with a small disadvantage of not listening to the full context of Vice Presidents and High Representatives Mogherini's introduction to our today's Development Council, but I would just like to say that I'm really glad to participate for the first time at a Foreign Affairs Council in the development format with the development ministers. And what my true impression is is that this is really a committed development people that were around the table. What we have discussed actually is how to position European Union in the forthcoming very important stage of international negotiations not only on the new development agenda for the next decades, but for I would say, new negotiations on the new development paradigm for the next decades. So for all development people, actually, there is nothing more important in time than the next year, where three processes will run in parallel: the shaping the post-2015 sustainable development goals, the process of financing for development or modes of implementation of the development goals, and the process of climate change. It is our task not to allow these processes to run in parallel only, but to converge at very early stage, to be interlinked, because these are all processes that will define the sustainable development goals in the future. And there is another challenge for all of us, especially after setting the development agenda, when starting to implement it. It's another challenge to make it, this implementation of this goal, to make the most important things not only for the development people, but for all the people in the world, because this is something that really touches upon and that also makes a decisive influence on their lives. So within that context, I'm encouraged by the ministers' readiness to go into building upon a strong one voice for Europe, strong European negotiating and bridge-building position in the negotiations. We shall be constructive. And I see it from the development ministers' interventions. European Union and the member states will be constructive, very constructive in avoiding a split between North and South in these negotiations. And we do hope that by such an approach, European Union will be influential player in this negotiation. So we often like to say that European Union has to transit from being a payer to being a player in the development policy, and now there is a place, there is a time, there is opportunity where we have to make this our wish or policy to be a real player in the development policy, to make it true.
Thank you. Diederik Kramers for DEVIX Agency. I would like to ask you a question about the agreement on the participation of private sector that was on which conclusions were reached this morning. Are you satisfied that there are enough guarantees that businesses will play by the rules and that it will that they will also benefit enough beneficiaries of development aid?
Yes, the role of private sector in the development policy, in the means of implementation of development policy, was one of the topic on the agenda today. And I would say that the ministers again were quite vocal on enhancing and supporting this private initiative, private investments, private contribution to development goals. we see that the European engagement, but also the other donors' engagement, must actually run not only along the lines of official development assistance. Yes, it will remain at the focus and at the core of our contribution to the development of our partner countries. But there are so many other financial and non-financial means of implementation of our policies where the private sector plays an important role. So we spoke of trade, of technology transfer, of research and innovation, also of blending capacities and the private sector. When speaking of a private sector, we see it from two angles. One being the, let us say, encouraging European Union private sector or companies to be more engaged into investment activities in our partner countries, and on the other hand to be more engaged together with the official flows of development assistance in building the capacity of the private sector in the partner country, especially from the very grassroots level, from the small farmers, medium and small and medium enterprises. Given the very fragile, some very vulnerable situation in a lot of our partner countries, of course, that there are limitations, there are obstacles to higher level of engagement of a private sector in some of the countries, but there is also a need for us, for the official development policy makers, to take care that the private sector engagement really runs along the lines of fair and fair trade, fair labor, fair engagement in the development project. So I felt the readiness of the ministers to be engaged at the national level, and the Commission and myself, we shall be engaged from the European Union level in keeping the overall favorable investment and economic climate and incentives for European investments in the developing countries, in partner countries, and also in making the governments or the good governance in these countries more inducive to create a very favorable economic, financial and other conditions for a small and medium sector to develop.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that was a question here.
Commissioner, can I just, Jerome Hughes, freelance journalist, can I ask the Commissioner just on the issue of refugees? We've seen a major crisis happening in Syria. The winter is coming here. The human rights organisation Amnesty International has described the EU's response to the crisis as pitiful because the neighbouring countries are taking in so many refugees. I think the EU has taken in something like 4 or 5%. So what more do you think can be done?
Yeah, European Union's response to humanitarian crisis, to refugee crisis, could be seen from various angles. First of all, the DG ECHO, or the ECHO services, our humanitarian and crisis response services, were created in order to enable a very fast, very urgent response to such type of crisis. But also we have developed very I would say very prominent capacity of the European Union to engage financially in a humanitarian and long-term development actions that are related to refugees or internally displaced persons. our engagement in terms of financial impact, for instance, in Syria or for Syrian refugees, amounts over 1.5 billion euros. Also for other refugees' needs, we go for more than 1 billion euros. But what is needed actually is to see what could be the modalities of implementing the refugee interventions or reaction to the crisis. In most cases, we do not have a own network or own forces, be it military or any other kind of forces that could actually make the European Union internal mechanism the only operating agent or operating institution for delivering humanitarian or refugee-related assistance. So in most of the cases, we rely on mostly UN organizations and their network, be it refugees organization or some specialized operation. So we finance, and the visibility of the European finance to refugees is not so visible. Therefore, sometimes it looks like that the European Union is not engaged at all in the refugees, in the refugee response to refugee crisis. But what we would like to do more now is also building the visibility and building the operational capacity in terms of, for instance, setting the trust funds for Syria, for instance. This is on our agenda right now, and this is one aspect of intervening on the spot or in the neighboring countries. Of course, when it comes to the refugees to come to Europe, I don't see that there is some kind of a intentional prevention or intentional delay in this process by any of the EU institutions or any of the member states. But as I try to explain, it's more about the overall policy that European Union has, and this is assisting those in need as close to their homes as possible, and to build the temporary conditions for their displacement and living in such conditions closer to their homes.
Thank you. Another question? Yes, please, Aminata.
Monsieur le commissaire, Aminata Nyang, Agence Europe, vous avez dit qu'il était temps pour l'Europe de passer du statut de payeur au statut d'acteur. Je voudrais savoir si, dans le cadre des objectifs de développement durable, les ministres ont précisé qu'ils réaffirmaient leur engagement à payer 0,7% du RNB en aide publique au développement. Et est-ce que vous pourriez nous dire en quelques mots quelle est la spécificité de la contribution des ministres du développement aujourd'hui au futur cadre post-2015? Merci.
Yes, financial commitments to the ODA or to the overall implementation of the new development agenda was at the core, I would say, of the today's discussion as well. The overall prevailing. That is my reading, my interpretation of the discussion with the ministers. My reading is that there is overwhelming support for the European Union to recommit to the existing 0.7% of GNI for official development assistance, with a specific and realistic timetable or time scheduled for reaching that goal, and with a specific least developed countries financing portion of this financial commitment. But it is a fact that that today it's only European Union and its member states that have taken any or exactly this financial commitment to ODA. No other developed countries has such a commitment. So I would say that it is more, let us say, tactical reasons that actually made us to bring this discussion on recommitting Europe and member states to 0.7 of the GNI for ODA. That we were not so clear today at this council, because for me it looks like that this is a decision, this is a context that should be broad, that should be taken forward and decided within our positioning for the financing for development conference in Addis in July this year. So I would say that one of our goals, or the question is when to commit, and the question is, first of all, to say it's not a question whether to commit or recommit or not. In general, I would read the discussion along these lines, that it is not a question whether to recommit, but it's a question when to recommit and under what conditions, how to use European recommitment to encourage or to induce other developed countries to also to commit, or how to open a dialogue with the emerging donors, also to take some level or fair share of and proportionate share of commitments in the financing for development process.
Thank you. I don't see any questions, so thank you very much for attending the briefing. Thank you, Commissioner, and see you next time.